Thanks for joining Solicited, a podcast hosted by me, Nicole,
And me, Caitlin.
where we discuss all the challenges related to being a 30-something millennial. Speaking of challenges related to trying to get through every day, right before this episode, right before we started recording Caitlin, it's Christmas time, and so I water the tree every couple of days. I had unplugged the tree earlier this morning because I hadn't watered the tree in a couple of days, and so I was scared my tree was going to catch on fire. So then I was like, oh, I have to plug it in. Well, I couldn't reach it. So I couldn't reach it and get the plug in. I'm like my tree is kitty cornered. And so I'm squeezing my body into the tree. Ornaments are popping off the tree. The tree is moving. And so finally I'm like, fuck this. And there's a multiple plug in the plug. You know what I'm saying? So I pull the whole thing off the wall. I'm trying to get it in there. I'm like, okay, I got it in. And then I go to put the multiple plug thing back on the wall, and I can't get this fucking thing for the life of me. So I just give up. I'm like, Nick, you have to do this. I can't do it. And he goes, he's suffering through this for minutes. He's like, it doesn't fit. It's not the right size. And I was like, it was plugged in 2 minutes ago. It's gotta fit. And so he's so mad at me. And then finally I go, oh, you know what it was? It wasn't plugged into the 2 plugs. It was only plugged in on the bottom plug, Nick. Sure enough, plugged it right in. Tree lights up. Gorgeous. Everything's great again. Just classic. It's like I knew that.
So that's hilarious. Can I just tell you, you guys should just get one of the smart plug and have Alexa turn it on for you, because we say, Alexa, turn on the Christmas tree. Alexa, turn off the Christmas tree. And you don't have to go anywhere over there the whole season. Oh, so sorry. I just turned yours on. And or maybe it was mine. I don't know. So,
I didn't realize when I was at your house late last month, I didn't realize when you guys were talking to Alexa about your Christmas tree, about the Christmas lights. And I was thinking dang, this really is a smart house. And I was like, how do they do it? It just seems like so much work to get Alexa to do all this. Are you telling me it's literally just plugs?
Yeah, smart plugs. So it's you. Can I just say you're the worst millennial I know? What is this? But I won't lie. I wouldn't have had any of these things if it wasn't for my husband. He has it turn on the coffee pot. He has it set up to turn on the coffee pot. And so we'll say, A, turn on the Keurig. A, turn off the Keurig. And I'm saying A instead of the name, because if not, I'm saying A, because if not, then my one in my husband's office right now would go wild. So yeah, so we have it set up for that. The Christmas lights outside, our patio string lights on the back porch, the Christmas tree, our bedroom light, not the fan, but we have a side light, and it's very helpful, I will say. I'm so sorry. I actually would go into my classroom and say, A, turn on the lights, and then realize that I'm not in my home and I'm in my job, and that did not have an Alexa.
I am a self-professed terrible millennial, and I cannot believe that all it is different plugs. That's crazy to me. Wow.
You should probably order some tonight after this, because I think it'll solve all your marital problems.
At least the ones related to the Christmas tree this year. Truth.
That's so funny. Oh my goodness. So today, last week we talked all about how we met our significant others. We had to give y'all a little bit of the background of us, because you're going to hear us mention our husbands probably a lot on this podcast. But today we're going to talk about how we got engaged and the wedding planning process and all that fun stuff. So Nicole, let's just jump right in today. How did you and Nick get engaged?
Well, we had a conversation, and then we were like, yeah, let's go ahead and get married. And then we told our families about it. That's literally what happened. So.
And when was this conversation?
Well, yeah, that's a great point. 7 years, 8 years. No, 7 years. We'd been together like 7 years at that point. And we were like at 30. We were like approaching 30 years old. And it was kind of like, I mean, we've been together 7 years. Clearly we like each other. And we're approaching
Weren't you
30.
already? You were already 30.
Yeah, we must have just turned 30. So it was a bit of a conversation for like a couple of years kind of leading up, like every now and then, like, what are we kind of doing? Because I was the one that was not sure I wanted to get married. And then, yeah, I think after turning 30 and just being like, this is working. Marriage was very important to Nick. So that is why the conversation kept coming up, because that was important to him. And then, seemed like not the right thing to do. That's not the right way to put it, but I'm very happy that we're married now. I don't think like I realized the value of it until we did it.
So what was it that changed for you that decided? Was it just because Nick is your partner and you love him and you care about him and you wanted him still in your life and you're like, hey, Nick wants to get married, so I don't want to lose him, so let's get married? Like, what was it for you? Or what was why did you not want to get married?
I think I didn't really, for like a long time, I guess I just didn't really understand. I didn't really value marriage. Oh, well, let me back up. I do still think that we put like a lot of emphasis on marriage, and like it's like the ultimate validation of a relationship is to get married. And I don't actually believe that. I think there's a lot of valid ways to have a relationship, and marriage is one of them. And so I think like that was for me for a long time what I was like internally combating, where I was like, I feel like I'm giving into the man. Like, why is this so important? Like, why is this so important? Like, we bought a house together before we were married. We had joint animals. Like, we did, you know what I mean? So like we had combined our lives in other really significant ways. And so for me, I don't know. I just wasn't really grasping why like this one thing was important. But I think to answer your question, I don't know. I think I became less idealistic. So I think like sometimes in your 20s, you're really idealistic and you want to like, be a rebel. And I think that was me for a long time. And then like the older I got, I was like, oh, well, we already are kind of married. Right. Like we are functioning like a married couple. So if it's important to Nick that we seal the deal in this way, then I'm okay with that. I also think I never wanted to get divorced. So I think it took me a long time to say like, okay, I'm ready to get married. In my 20s, I did not feel ready to get married. And I don't personally, you can disagree with me. I don't think anybody should get married in their 20s. So for me, it was also that.
Well, good thing you got married when you were 31, almost 32. So that worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I think that's also fair. And I would say valid too, because I'm sure you're not the only female that feels this way. Like I know, I know people that are fine with, getting married, but then they just always knew that they never wanted to have kids. And it's not like something that they've ever had to do or needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, look at you. You're all married and shit now.
Now I'm married and shit. And I do, like I said, I mean, to each their own. You don't want to get married, don't. And I do think there's value in it now. I think there's value in it. I see the value in it now in a way I didn't a couple of years ago.
Well, I want to dig deeper with that, so I'm going to try and remember that. But I do have another question for you before you get to that. So Nick never got down on one knee, said, will you marry me? It wasn't like the traditional engagement, correct?
That's
It was just
correct.
let's have a conversation.
I told him for years, I said,
Oh
if
gosh.
you waste money on a ring to propose to me, why would you do that? And I said, and if you ask my fucking dad for permission, you can guarantee a big fat no from me. So like that's the messaging he got for, 7 years. So yeah, I mean, I kind of backed him into a corner.
Well, y'all, Nicole and I we're very opposite. We're very opposite.
Yeah. You
Oops.
flash your big old rock. But here's the funny thing, and then I want to hear about yours is, but now I'm vain as fuck. So I'm like, baby, you want to get me a ring? Let's do it. Let's put it in the budget.
That's
Uh,
funny. Oh
but
my
how about you?
gosh.
I know growing up with you, the one thing if somebody ever asked me like what's important to Caitlin, I'd be like, oh, she wants to get married, she wants to have kids. Like those are high values for her. So tell me about you're married. So tell me about your engagement. It was a little bit more traditional, yes?
A little bit.
It was top shelf traditional though, like all out. It was good.
Well, yes. I'm just still laughing because the fact that you guys had a conversation that you were getting engaged and then I didn't find out about it or you were going to get married until months later. I vividly remember us being on the phone. You're like, oh, by the way, Nick and I were talking and we're going to get married. And I pretty sure I screamed on the phone. Actually, I know I did because Mike came in and was like, are you okay? And I was like, go away, go away. Like I'm in a conversation with you trying to get all the scoop and the deets and the hot tea. So I'm just laughing because I vividly remember being in my bedroom on the phone talking with you and you telling me this. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me this months
What?
ago when you had the conversation? Like, what the heck? So anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so Mike and I, July of 2021, we went on a trip to St. Lucia. And leading up before we went on this trip, it was COVID times, y'all. And so Mike was not very big into traveling. And I just told him when we first started dating, look out, buddy, because like I like to travel. And he said, we're going on a trip this summer. And he was so adamant about going on a trip that I knew something was up. Like, come on, my little radar was cooking. So we booked this trip and we decided to go to St. Lucia, quick trip to the Caribbean, use the passports, all the fun stuff. And one of my best friends honeymooned there with her husband. And when I was talking to her about our trip, she had told me, I regret not getting pictures done there because it's so beautiful and it's probably a place that she was never going to go back to. And I was like, what a great idea. Mike and I have no like nice pictures. And at this point we had been dating for 2 years and like we already knew that he told me after a month that he wanted to marry me. So I was just waiting like, hello, let's go. Let's get the ball rolling. We're both in our 30s. Let's move in groove. So, I ended up booking a photographer because I wanted nice pictures of Mike and I. And Mike decided to double dip on this photographer and propose. So we get to St. Lucia. We get to the first spot, and I just had a gut feeling he was going to propose. Leading up to it, he was so sketch on his phone. He was hiding things on his phone. He was clinging his laptop bag on the flight, and he had the ring in like a little pouch type thing. And when we were going down for our pictures, I kept looking in his pocket. I thought he had like maybe a wad of cash or something in the back, but no, it was the ring. He had it somewhere in his pocket, but we had a very traditional engagement, except for the day that we got engaged, we decided to hike the Pitons in St. Lucia. And your girl, I only made it halfway up. That was that was the hardest hike I've ever done in my whole life. I made it halfway and then I sat at the halfway mark and everyone was like, oh, who are you here with? And I was like, oh, my boyfriend. And I said, he kept going and people thought I was married. And I was like, no, I think he's proposing tonight. And sure enough, I was right. And I called it. So when Mike got down on one knee, we were taking test shots. He didn't tell the photographer that we were getting engaged until 5 minutes before on WhatsApp saying, by the way, I'm proposing. And she had no idea. So like there's like model shots of me practicing in the light. And then I see Mike like pacing over on the side and he starts to walk over and is like, before we start, he was like, I love you so much. And he got down on one knee and he was crying. I didn't cry. I was just so excited. I was like, I knew it. And that was the first thing I said to him. And then of course I said yes, because here we are years later, but pretty traditional, down on one knee. Then I FaceTime my family and his family and my best friends.
I was gonna say, I remember talking to you and him. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So FaceTimed and said we were engaged and we started looking at venues actually while we were in St. Lucia for our wedding. So funny enough.
Do you mean like going and touring them in St. Lucia or looking on the internet?
Oh gosh, no. We were looking on the internet to get married back home. Don't get me wrong. A destination wedding, I'm a big fan, but it was hard during the time when we got engaged because it was still kind of COVID times. And it's funny because Mike and I always joke about it now after looking back on our wedding. And I told Mike, I was like, if you would have just proposed sooner, we could have had a COVID wedding and had like 10 people, you know, or just us. I don't know. Not that we don't love our families. We ended up loving how our wedding was. Do we have some regrets or changes and this and that? Yeah. But like at the same time, I, it's hard to play the what if game, you know? You
Mm.
can't say it's kind of not worth it, but I don't know.
There's no point in playing the what if game because there is like an infinite amounts of options and infinite amounts of ways in which something like a proposal or a wedding will get planned, and they will all be great. They'll just be different.
Exactly. I mean, hello. So let's just talk about the differences so far in our engagements. You and Nick had a conversation. Me and Michael, he did the whole traditional thing. And I had told him, I was like, you have to ask my dad for permission beforehand. Like, it's just so traditional. And there's actually a really funny story about that. I got to tell you real quick. It was my 30th birthday. We rented a house in here in Orlando with my parents, my brother, my sister, my nephew, and Mike's mom. And we stayed for my 30th birthday. And the first night, my dad and Mike were making tacos. And Mike was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to get another chance to do this. And he says, hey, John, I have a question for you. And my dad's like, yeah, sure. What's up, Mike? And he goes, well, you know, I love your daughter. And my dad was like, what? Like, this is really happening? And I'm like 99% sure my dad was like, are you sure? Like no give backs, like any of that kind of stuff. But my dad got choked up. They're talking about this over tacos. And then my dad kept the secret, at least from me. I kept hounding. I was like, has he asked you for permission yet to marry me? Like, when is this going to happen? We've been together for 2 years. And like, I was just
I'm
ready to,
30.
yeah. I'm like,
I'm
come
30
on.
now.
30, ready, and thriving. Let's go. So, but
Mm.
anyway, so that my husband asked my dad over that weekend over tacos, cooking tacos together, and I just think my dad did not expect that question to come. And it's funny because now looking back, I realize how much my dad avoided conversations and stuff with me then from that point until he proposed in July, but you know, it's okay. He did a good job keeping the secret. But so you and Nick were together 7 years, Mike and I
Mhm.
2 years. You guys had
Mhm.
a conversation. Mike got down on one knee.
Mhm.
We got married in November of 2022. You got married
Mhm.
in March of 2023. Now, how many people were at your wedding?
Well, before we get to how many people were at my wedding, I also think it's important to note that, like I didn't want to get married, I definitely didn't want to have a wedding.
I was actually real shocked you didn't do a courthouse wedding, truly.
I asked. I tried really hard. Throughout the whole planning process, there were times where I was just looking at Nick and be like, it's not too late. We can send a cancellation to everybody. We
Well,
can
you
go
already did
elope
that
somewhere.
once.
And I did already, yep, I did do that once. So because I really didn't want a wedding, and I definitely didn't want like a big wedding, and I also understand the cost of a wedding, I was like, practically, we need to rein this in. Also, Nick has a massive extended family. So it could have just been like hundreds of people if we wanted it to be. And I did not want to do that. So we agreed on a 50-person wedding, and we ended up increasing to like 55. So it was like 55 people, including us.
That's crazy. It
Mm-hmm.
was really nice though. Like intimate. I liked that.
Mm-hmm. What about
Um,
you? How many people were actually at your wedding?
so initially when we first got engaged, I started to write out I have a huge family. And here's the thing, most of my cousins now are married, and then most of my cousins have children. And so
Mm-mm.
the list gets massive. So in the initial list, there was over 100 something people and just family from and just family from my side of the wedding. And So our initial list was 225, and then we ended up with 125 adults, 7 5-year-olds and under, and 3 6 to 10-year-olds. But then, so total, it was supposed to be 135, but 132 was our total number because 3 people didn't come. So uh, it was still pretty big wedding. It's hard because Mike and I both have a really big friend group and like friends from different seasons and all that kind of stuff. Most of his friends he's been friends with for forever, but it was so hard to tell people like no kids. Like it was only like my cousin's kids and then one of my sister's best friend's kids because they flew from California for the wedding and her parents were going to be at our wedding too. So it was hard.
So you had like a total of like 10 kids at your wedding?
Yeah, 10.
And then you actually told people no kids?
Mm-hmm. It was all cousins. It was all cousins' kids that were traveling from out of state cousins. So out of state cousins, and then my niece and nephew, and my sister's best friend had a baby.
Were you guys worried that because you had different rules, like that you kind of said like no kids, but then for anybody who maybe had kids and couldn't bring them, that they show up and then they see like some kids there? Did you guys have any concerns about like different rules for different people and ruffling feathers around that?
I did a little bit, but then at the same time is like we wanted our friends to come without their kids so that they would have a good time. And so most of our friends that did come and had a good time without their kids and it was nice for a night out, but also I didn't want like almost more than half of my bridesmaids have children and I love all of their kids so much. But I knew if they were there that their parents like they wouldn't be the same I feel like when you're a bridesmaid in a wedding or a groomsman or whoever it is, like you're there for the bride and you are there for the groom and like you are there to help them throughout the day with whatever it is that you might need or I don't know, just like really anything and I didn't want people to have to be worrying about their children and to let their hair down and have a good time. So it was I will say that was really hard for me because some of my best friends all have children that I am very, very close with. Um, and I will say that was like a slight regret.
You bring up a good point about when you're in somebody's wedding, you're kind of working. It's kind of an invitation to work for the day, which is fine. Like that's what we do for our friends and the people that we love. So having your kids there is not really ideal.
Truth. Very true. Um, I have another random question for you that I just thought of.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, so we're talking about weddings, we're talking about being wedding guests, bridesmaids, groomsmen, whatever. I got married in New Smyrna Beach, so it was like kind of like a mini destination wedding. And I should have counted before we did this podcast how many weddings I've been to because I've been to so many weddings. And this venue that we were getting married at was one that I had never been to a wedding at before. And that was part of the, I guess, thrill for me is like, woohoo, we're getting married here and nobody else we know has gotten married here. It was actually an old citrus factory. We got married at a barn, but it was an
That's
old
pretty cool.
citrus factory. But I mean, it didn't really seem like a barn when you were inside of it, correct?
No, your wedding was rustic chic, but it was not like a barn. No, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, no.
Okay. Just making sure you're on the same page. And so I think you need to share with the listeners where you got married because this is hilarious to me.
The long answer or the short answer?
I think you give them the short answer because we're gonna go into the long answer on another podcast episode.
Mm-hmm. So we ended up getting married in Las Vegas, which is really crazy because we're not like Vegas people. And I had actually never been to Vegas ever until the summer of 2021. That was the first time I'd ever been to Vegas. We had a great time, had some unfinished business there. And so when we had like a wedding venue crisis, Nick just looked at me and he was like, why don't we just get married in Vegas? And I was like, I fucking love that idea.
We need to also preface for the listeners that you did not have like an Elvis marry you type Vegas wedding. It was not The Hangover, it was not like that.
No, I appreciate you saying that. It was not. And listen, no shade on that. You want Elvis to marry you. Actually, my other friend, she got married the summer before, also in Vegas, like randomly, and she did have Elvis marry her. But that's not my personal style. So no, we did not have. We had Sweet Judy marry us at a cactus nursery. That was the vibe
And
in the desert.
it was pretty epic, honestly.
Yeah, it was a
And
really good time.
very, very windy.
Ugh, it's the only thing that I'm like, if I could wave a magic wand, that would be the thing. But
Take away the wind. Yeah, it did make it extra chilly too.
mhm.
Okay, so let's back up here. So traditionally, women plan the wedding. Was that the
Mhm.
case for you guys? Did you plan y'all's wedding?
Did I plan it or did Nick and I plan it?
Like traditionally, I feel like the female does it all, and then the husband's just like, "Yeah, that's fine, whatever." I, I mean,
I would say we fell along those lines, yeah.
well, you are the planner in your relationship, and we're gonna have to do a whole podcast episode on this. So
About how I'm a low-key control freak. I'm like chill and care about nothing until I decide to care about something, and then it's like to the umpteenth degree. And it's
that's
like
so
down
funny.
to the detail. So yeah, it was mostly me, and God bless Nick's sweet little heart. He couldn't have helped even if he wanted to. Even if he had when I asked him to, he wouldn't have been able to help.
That's so funny. See, Mike said he cared about like three things for our wedding. He said he cared about the food.
Mm,
Like he wanted the food to be fabulous. He wanted the music to be poppin'. Like my husband listens to pretty much everything, but he loves EDM music, and so he wanted club like scene on the dance floor, and I wanted like 2000s throwback because that's our childhood. So we had to do a little even wedding mix and his EDM stuff. And so he cared about the food, he cared about the music, and he wanted to have like he wanted to kind of like pick his outfit and have a cool watch. And I'm like, okay, I don't care. Check, check, check. So I guess, did I say, oh yeah, music. Yeah. So he actually helped plan the wedding a lot. Um and I'm not mad about it because I did all of the details and all that fun stuff. He did so much of the coordinating with the venue, emailing back and forth, and with our alcohol, he did most of that. And I kind of like handled the DJ, music, florist, all the hair and makeup stuff, the photographer, photo booth, and he handled like all the stuff for the rehearsal dinner. So I kind of feel like it was pretty even-ish for who did what. In the end, when it came down to all the details and wrapping gifts and doing all that fun stuff, it was your girl. Like Mike could have cared less about any of the details, but
I like what you said about goals, and I remember Nick and I having some of those conversations about like what's the most important thing, and then like framing everything around that. So I kind of like that because I think when Nick and I were doing this, we had said similarly. I said I want good food, I want a good bar, I want people to have really good drinks, and really good music. Those were like the three things: food, drink, music. We just want it. I remember us saying the goal is to throw a party. We just want to throw a party where people want to come and eat and drink and like have a great time. Like that's the goal, is how do we create that?
I love that. See, and something that was big for me was I wanted great photos. Like I
Mm,
wanted to, because I mean that's what you really have after your wedding is the photos to look back on.
mm-hmm.
And we have had a videographer as well. And I told him, I said, I want to be on the dance floor all night with the drink in my hand. Like that was all I wanted. And I think I accomplished that. If I was not on the dance floor, I was in the photo booth. So
Yeah, and I remember we actually stole the photo booth idea from you for our wedding, and that's where we got that from, because I remember you saying that, and then I actually remember Mike saying, oh, I was really skeptical and was sort of like, do we really need to spend the money? And I remember him saying, like, I was a skeptic, and I thought that was one of the best last minute add-ons we added to our day, and I was like, tuck that away, and then we did the same thing.
Yeah, she was a really sweet vendor too. Something cool at your wedding though was like your person with the photo booth like was going around, like had like a machine and was taking pictures of people walking around, which was cool. I liked that. Because people tend to forget to go to the photo booth, or if they see a line, they don't want to wait in the line, that type of thing.
Yep. And I remember she was like going through approaching people and being like, can we get pictures? Like, you want pictures? Yeah.
I did like that. I definitely did like that.
So the other thing you mentioned that is a deviation between the two of us is bridesmaids. How many bridesmaids did you have?
Well, you're coming at me, aren't you?
I don't know. Is there something to come at you about?
Did I or did I not have 8 bridesmaids? Because I think it was 8.
Was it 8, dude? I blocked it out because I think from the jump, I was like, that's a lot of bridesmaids. You had a lot.
My sister, my 2 cousins, you, like childhood. Oh, my hand just started cramping. Childhood best friend.
You have to count so high.
Childhood best, my sister-in-law, and yeah, I had 8.
That's wild.
It's just hard. Like sadly, I could have had more, but also my husband could have had more.
So then how'd you choose 8?
Because I didn't want 100 bridesmaids. Like I could be the girl from 27 Dresses for how many times I've been a bridesmaid, And I think you have such great people in your life, but you have to also be realistic, and planning with that many people is not easy. And it still wasn't easy with 8 people. Y'all on my wedding day were steaming 8 dresses plus my wedding dress and my mom's dress. Like there was a lot of people. I don't regret it because I love all the people that were in my wedding. But you were pretty smart because hello, you had a big fat 0. So
yes, we did not have a wedding party. Yeah.
Tell us more. Why?
Okay, I'm sorry. I know I'm just going to acknowledge that this is a really unpopular opinion and people will be upset by this. I think wedding parties are stupid. And I think that, and I say this and I had a great time. Let me also just preface this. I had a great time in your wedding. You asked me to be bridesmaid. I'm going to say yes if you're one of my close friends. It's like no shade on that. But my true beliefs are that they're stupid, that they put a lot of burden on people that you love, who you want to share the day with. And then it becomes like a day of work. Like, again, loved it, but we spent I was with you like 14 or 18 hours on your wedding day. Not just like lounging around drinking mimosas, but like steaming dresses and putting things on tables and you know what I mean? And then like going out to the after party, because I also feel like that's your crew then. So like now we're in it the whole fucking day, whatever you want. Like you're not going to hear a no if you're a good bridesmaid, at least. So I just thought and I think it's a financial burden. So again, it's like to me, traditionally, I think people get really hung up on like, it's my day. And then they turn it around on how the people they love and care about should like do extra things for them because they made a decision to get married. And I just don't think that that's true. I think my approach to getting married was like, we're so excited and we want to share this. Like we want to throw a party for you guys to celebrate with us. So I think we just came from a slightly different place. And also it was like 50 people and a destination, and it just like was unnecessary for us. So that is why.
Was Nick okay with not having groomsmen?
He fought it a lot, but I was pretty firm on it. Mm-hmm. Because he also probably could have had 25 groomsmen, like because I think that he probably would have fallen into like where you and Mike were, which is like, gosh, I just have so many people I love, so many people that have asked me to be in their wedding, and to me, I'm just like, eliminate it. Like I just just saying, just don't do it at all, and then nobody's feelings get hurt, and then it's not an added additional planning piece for the people having the party, and then all of your best friends can just like show up and fucking throw down and not have to worry.
I will say it did take the pressure off. Like, I still got ready with you on your wedding day. I had my makeup done. We still drank mimosas and chilled. Well, I didn't drink mimosas because I was pregnant. So I drank orange juice and chilled. But
Mm-hmm.
I still feel like we did things for you as like unofficial bridesmaids, I guess, is
Mm-hmm.
what it was. Yeah.
Yes, and that's a good point. So I don't know if you have a different opinion as a person who was not a bridesmaid but was with me for like 5 days in Vegas. So I think like where Nick and I tried to go, so we're not going to do this formal thing where we make this formal ask of people, but we do have really close friends and we want to spend, like, this is an exciting moment and we do want to make an effort to spend special time with these people. So the way that we did that was, we got a big house in Vegas with some of our close friends. So we partied. It was just like a constant party the whole time we were in Vegas, which was fun and gave us like different opportunities to see different people. We had our bachelor and bachelorette parties in Vegas. So then it was just like anybody who was close to us who was in Vegas for the wedding pretty much got invited to go out. And then that was like kind of a shit show. There were so many people, like 12 or 16 people that went out. It was kind of messy, but fun, really fun. So then everybody got invited to that. And then I remember we made sure we made dinner plans with some of our out of state friends. And then the day of, all of the girls, my mom, my sister, my sister-in-law, my mother-in-law, my other sister-in-law, so Nick's sister, and then you and Deirdre, so my
Yeah.
two like closest friends, the 7 of us. I invited you all to get your hair or makeup done that morning with me, and if people wanted to, they did. And so then it was also like informal, like come by, have some mimosas, get your hair and makeup done, scoot out, see you later. And that was kind of it. The other thing you got saddled with as an unofficial bridesmaids was you drove my ass to my wedding and you drove my drunk ass home. So that was greatly appreciated.
You're right. But, I think that just happened being pregnant at your wedding. And I will say, I vividly remember when you were talking about booking a house for everybody, you're like, come stay. And so my husband likes to have his own bathroom and his own space and was worried that being in a house with that many people would have been chaos and us not having a master type bathroom. And we also didn't know if I was going to be pregnant or not when we were committing to your wedding. And thank God we didn't, because my butt was 20 weeks pregnant and I could not even imagine being in a house with that many people. And plus, I couldn't drink and do all the fun things. Not saying I wouldn't have played games and hung out with y'all more, but we had a good time.
So you were saying by not being a bridesmaid in my wedding, it took the pressure off. Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I think it took the pressure because you didn't have bridesmaids in general. I didn't have to do a maid of honor speech or anything for you. And I really do think it takes like the pressure off, like you said, financially, of buying the matching dress that you're never going to wear again. And, if you had to buy jewelry or certain outfits for bachelorette parties and like things like that, I can see where you were coming from with that perspective.
What I will say too is thinking about that for yours, you were really thoughtful as a person who was in your wedding. I do think that some of the gripes I have, I think you were really thoughtful about. So, like, for instance, the dress you picked, honestly, I think one of the cheapest dresses. I've spent more money on shoes for myself than I spent on your bridesmaid's dress. And so you made that like super duper simple. And I really thought that that was wise. You weren't a control freak about the dress in any way. So I really appreciated that.
And I
And
let y'all pick your own style. Like, it just had to be the same color.
same color. Yep. Yeah. So I really liked that. And I also thought that you also gave very good gifts. Y'all, if you have a wedding party, you better give them gifts. For real. For real. And you fed us the day that you fed us multiple meals the day of your wedding before your actual wedding. Like you say, you served us breakfast and lunch, if I remember correctly. And then we had your wedding meal. So that was also like a slam dunk.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, baby, and booze. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, booze. And it's funny you say something about the wedding gift. Like, so I'm gonna plug myself here a little bit. I've been in so many weddings that I tried to be thoughtful of things that I would want as a bridesmaid or things that I liked as a bridesmaid from how many weddings I've been to.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of me wanted to pay for y'all's hair and makeup, but then I was like, some people
It's
might not
really
want to get their hair
expensive.
and makeup done. And that would have just been y'all's gift. But then for me, I knew I wanted like a cute picture of all of us in pajamas, and I wanted you guys to get pajamas that I thought you would rewear again, like comfortable ones.
Hang on, sidebar. What did I wear the day I got ready for my wedding? Do you remember?
Yes, the pajamas I bought you from my wedding. I do remember that. That's so funny.
And let
Yeah.
me tell you why. So another fucking life hack, because it had buttons down the front.
Mm-hmm. That's why I
So
did
if
it
you're
on
getting your
purpose.
hair and makeup done, you can button off your shirt and put your dress on. Brilliant.
Just boop. Little I got you. I got
Yeah.
you. Again, been a bridesmaid a time or two. So I got my girls pajamas. My sister got everybody slippers for the gift or to go with the gift. And then I was so torn on what to get all of my bridesmaids. I just wanted something that you guys would use again. So I'm like, okay, I got them. What was it? Kate Spade earrings?
Kendra Scott.
Oh, yeah, you're right. And I just thought the earrings were really nice and that you could rewear them again and again and again. And my sister wears hers all the time. I've seen some of my other bridesmaids wear theirs, and I'm just happy I got something that wasn't something you wear one time and you're done. So, yay. Get your bridesmaids good gifts. You're right.
Agreed. The only people I got gifts for on my wedding day for my wedding was my mom and my mother-in-law. Mm-hmm.
I won't lie. I did get my dad and my mom, and actually, I don't know if I got my mom something, but I got my mother-in-law something as well.
Oh, and
Um,
my dad. I did get my dad a gift as well.
you got him
But
socks, am I right?
I got him I put together a little thing. Yeah, I got him I got him socks with our faces on them, like
That's
as
what it was.
bride and dad, with our faces on them, and it said something cute. And then we got him a nice watch, and we may have gotten him something else. Like I put together like a little gift for him. Yeah,
It's sweet. I got my dad a handkerchief because my dad always uses handkerchiefs, and I got
that's
it,
adorable.
saying something all sweet, and he cried when he
That's so
saw it.
cute.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and then my father-in-law passed away when Mike and I first started dating. So I had a print done, like local painter, make a watercolor picture of me and Mike from behind in my wedding dress and his suit, and his mom in her dress with a picture of his dad with some angel wings. And we had that on the chair where his dad would have sat at the wedding. And I gifted that to my mother in law.
It was a really nice picture. I remember it. It was really
Yeah.
thoughtful.
Thanks, friend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, oh,
Mm-hmm.
oh, good old gifts. Gifts. I love giving gifts, especially when I know what somebody likes. But besides that, I'm a quality time person all the way.
How did I not know this? Because my friends make fun of me that I am like a massive gift giver. Like I get wild. Like it's similar to you though. Like when I know a person, I'm like, oh my God, this is the best gift. And I get so fucking psyched about it and I make it look so pretty. How did I not know that we have this in common?
I don't know where you've been the last, 28 years, but here you are. Um,
Uh,
so okay, let's do like some rapid fire thoughts.
okay.
Uh we talked about how we got engaged, the wedding, planning. Do you regret anything from your wedding day?
Things within my control.
Whatever you want to say. Is there anything you would change from your wedding day? How about that?
Weather.
It was
And
freezing, by the way. It was so cold in the desert, y'all. I was shivering.
the wind. It was the wind that was making it so cold. The wind was like, I don't, 15 or 20 mile per hour gust. It knocked over a DJ tower speaker. Do you remember that?
I do remember that
It
actually.
was like a 10-foot speaker, knocked it right the fuck over. It was crazy. So probably just that. That is really the only thing. That's really the only thing I can think of. How about you? One thing.
How do I pick just one? Honestly, my big thing is I know that sounds terrible. Like, don't get me wrong. I try not to play the what if game, but
Mhm.
then I think about how much we spent on the wedding. Yes, we had a great time. Yes, I love my people. All of our favorite people were there. We had a blasty blast. But my hair, for some reason, wasn't staying curled. My hair
Mhm.
always stays curled. I slept an hour the night before our wedding. That's a very long story, but sleeping 1 hour is not good for anybody, beauty wise. Um, I would have written my vows down in my actual book instead of having my poor cousin have to rapidly write them for me from my transfer from my phone into my little book. I would have done
Mhm.
that ahead of time, but I just, I lost track of time planning the wedding, and there's lots of little things that I probably would have changed. Oh, like my mom and sister not following my itinerary schedule and showing up an hour after they were supposed to get their hair done with wet hair. I love them both, but I think I'm kind of like you. I think it's the teacher in me that's kind of like control freak. And especially because I've been in a wedding before where if you're getting your hair and makeup done, you're like screwing up the timeline for everybody else. And I spoke about this with my photographer all the time is that if you are off on your timeline, it screws up your photos. And Mike and I didn't plan on doing a first look of originally. Thank God we did because the time change. And so I would say have a timeline, like, and people that are in your wedding need to stick to it. So I think there's little things like that. My husband changed and picked a different last song and I didn't know. And all of a sudden the DJ's like, oh, this is the last song. And I look at my husband, I was like, that wasn't the last song that we chose together. And he's like, I know, I
I
changed it.
changed it.
And he was just living his best life to some EDM song that I have heard once. And I was very frustrated with him with that. So
If you could add something to your wedding, what would it be?
I would add, I would have added more dancing and more drinking and partying because like I didn't want the night to end. Honestly, I wanted to keep going because I felt like we got married, our ceremony was so fast, and then it just you blink and your wedding's over. It goes so quick.
Mhm. Yeah, I would say the same thing, although I hesitate to say the same thing just because the weather was so uncomfortable, but we could have kept partying at my wedding easily. I think if we had 2 more hours, we could have kept going.
It's such a what if pros and cons. Like I think at the end of the day, you have to think about what's important to you. Do you want to remember the day with your family members, your close friends, or is it just about you and your significant other? And there's a part of me that would have been 100% fine if my parents and my siblings and my mother-in-law and my husband's sister, if we would have just all gone somewhere and gotten married, that would have been great. But I would have hurt a lot of people's feelings. And I care about other people's feelings, I think, a little too much. So
This goes back to like closing the loop here all the way at the beginning. I said, there's infinite amounts of ways to do something like an engagement or a wedding. And there's probably also infinite amounts of ways in which you do that you end up happy. The pressure shouldn't actually be that much.
one more thing I would say is that I think for women, at least most women, besides you, is you have a very specific image in your head of what your wedding day is going to look like. And for me, I really struggled finding a wedding dress. And I remember talking with you about this. And I went to 9 different places over from the month of November of 2021 until March of 2022, and my wedding was in November. And this was during COVID when dresses were taking months and months and months to come in, and I was panicking because I went to a million different places and tried on dresses and I just couldn't find the perfect thing. So, funny wedding story, I actually hopped on an airplane with my sister and I flew to Texas to try on a size 24 sample size of this dress that wasn't exactly what I wanted lining wise and all of these things just to see if I liked it. And then I flew back to Florida. Like my sister and I were there for maybe 36 hours. It was a very fast trip. And I ended up buying that dress after trying on a sample size and just praying that I liked it. And I liked my wedding dress. It was heavy and I didn't want that. I wanted something like lighter. But my other tip for people is throw away the picture of what you had in your head away, because whatever you decide is going to work out and it's going to be perfect for what you chose. I think we're going to need to post some pictures on our social media of us in our dresses. So people can see how drastically different one, like you are like the typical non-traditional bride, like didn't know you were going to get married. And I think I very much fell into the traditional type thing at least compared to you. So that's just so funny. Like white bridal. I will say, another hot tip coming at you live, people.
No, we were thinking the same thing. We were thinking this. Is it about your feet? Is that what you're about to say?
Yes. Wear sneakers.
Wear sneakers. So that's so funny because I was going to say the one thing we have in common is that we both wore sneakers on our wedding day. Yeah, I think that is that is, if you take nothing else away from this last hour, it's wear sneakers on your wedding day. If you're wearing a long dress, nobody sees your feet. But you're insane if you're wearing fucking heels.
I need y'all to stop what you're doing right now and follow us. Make sure you're following us on Instagram at Solicited the Podcast. And if you're feeling this podcast, then there's a few things that we need from you. One, definitely like and share this episode with all your friends. Also, you can email us at solicitedthepodcast@gmail.com. Any topics that you guys want us to cover or any feedback that you have, give it to us. I love some good feedback. And next week, we have... Nicole, you want to tell them what we're going to be talking about next week?
Oh, yes. Jamaica, where I was supposed to get married. And the wedding planning that turned into you and me going on a global trip and changing the whole plan and then coming back stateside and telling my husband we were no longer getting married in Jamaica. On the docket for next week.
And so don't forget to like this episode and share us with all of your friends and find us on Instagram at Solicited the Podcast. We'll see you guys next week.